It's the Tony Tone Show on Vintage Sound 93.1 FM on the MPW Digital TV Celebrity Hotline. Agent to the stars, Supermensch himself, Shep Gordon. Before I grab him, I just want to read you a little bit from his new book. They call me Supermensch, a backstage pass to the amazing world of film, food, and rock and roll. This is from Shep Gordon. One night in 1968, I was driving in Los Angeles looking for a place to stay just after quitting the job that brought me from New York to California. I arrived at the Landmark Motor Hotel, grabbed a room. I'm going to fast forward just a little bit because I want to get to this story because it's absolutely ridiculous. So it's entertaining. Here we go. We pick it up. At midnight, I stepped onto the balcony. The courtyard was hazy, kind of misty fog that rose into L.A. some nights, and lit from the inside by blue pool lights. I was standing there, awash in my confusion of fear and elation, when from somewhere in the blue haze down by the pool, I heard a girl scream. I could barely make out some figures down there, so for some reason, whenever someone's in trouble in any way, my instinct is to go there and help them. I hurried down the stairs and into the haze ahead of me. Vague figures tumbled around beside the pool near the diving board. My brain went to rape. I'm not sure why. Rape had never been any part of my life. I said something like, "Hey, man, you can't do that," and went to separate them. That's when the girl punched me in the mouth. He was punched in the face by Janis Joplin, who at the time was getting it on near the pool. That's when Janis introduced herself and introduced Shep to Jimi Hendrix, Lester and Willie Chambers of the Chambers Brothers, amongst others. Shep Gordon on the show now. Hi, Shep.
Hey, Tony. Aloha.
Aloha to you. How are you doing?
I'm great, man.
I appreciate you taking the time. Before we start, I guess I should tell you that this radio station that you're on, we are a proud affiliate of Nights with Alice Cooper. I've met Alice 4 times, so I feel like I already kind of know you through Alice, sort of.
Isn't he the greatest?
I can't, Shep, I can't even, like, put it into words when people...
No, you don't have to tell. I've been with him 47 years. I've never seen him ever go left on me for 1 minute.
Oh. He is just one of the nicest guys that I've ever met in my career.
Never heard him raise his voice. Never heard him curse. It's wild. He's almost not human.
So the last time we saw him was September 22nd. It was my anniversary. I was with my wife in Waukegan, Illinois, outside of Chicago, where I grew up. And we had the passes to see Alice after the show. And I think we kind of got lumped in with maybe the wrong group of people that were going through because I had some stuff for him to sign. And they said, just pictures for this group. And as I was getting ready to walk out, I was kind of like, well, that's kind of a bummer. And then Amber came to the rescue, and she's like, hey, it was so great. She's like, I recognize you from, and I was like, yeah, I saw you. We talked in Peoria. And she's like, yeah, stick around. And she was wonderful, man. She's such a great person.
Really great to hear that. I love her so much. So proud of her.
And she's doing such good work on that tour. So, okay, we got to talk about the book. They Call Me Supermensch, a backstage pass to the amazing world of film, food, and rock and roll. I have the book ordered. It's coming. I was just reading a couple excerpts from online. Without giving it away, Shep, you have led and continue to lead such a fascinating life, and the people that you've interacted with and worked with. And what I want to say as a compliment to you is that it seems like you've done it, even with trials and tribulations. You've always maintained a positive attitude. So is there a secret to that, or have you always just been a positive, optimistic person?
I think I've always had that inclination. It really got magnified when I started to be around the chef Roger Vergé. Mm-hmm. It started to really make sense to me that being nice was the right thing to do. I always did it, but I never looked at it as, I don't know if selfish is the right word to use, but I always did it because I felt it was the right thing to do, but would have maybe a little bit of guilt about it. Maybe I wasn't doing the right, maybe I should be a little harder on the other people, or, I watched my contemporaries. And then when I got around him, I realized that, you die.
Right. Right.
And live a good life in the middle. And then I started to see how happy he was. And then I had a chance to cook for His Holiness, the Dalai Lama, who lived the same kind of life of service. And he was happy. His knees weren't shaking. He wasn't sweating. He was happy. He was in the moment and happy. And the commonality that I saw between all of them was really the commonality that we all learn as young kids from our religion, even though they may not practice it, which is treat your neighbor right, be compassionate, do the right thing. Really simple rules. And when I started to get an awareness of it, I started to see how important it was for what I did, because careers have ups and downs.
Yep.
And I would see around me so many times, I'd hear a conversation at the table of like a TV producer or someone who say, "Oh man, I'm never putting them back on the show. They were such a pain in the neck." And when you're on the way down, you want to be able to call the TV producer and say, "I need some help." And if you were good to him, you get it, and your career goes back. So it's selfish on every level. It supports your career. It makes you happy. So for me, it just became a way of life that was very obvious, and was able to translate to my clients, which I'm really happy about. And I think you really see it in Alice.
Yeah, and the diversity in the people that you've represented, from Alice to Teddy, the late great Teddy Pendergrass, and Luther Vandross. I mean, it seems like, did you get to a point, Shep, where you were pretty much just open to representing anybody? I mean, within limitations, but
it's funny you say. Music was never my passion.
Sure.
I wasn't signing artists I had a passion, but early on, after Anne Murray and Groucho and Raquel, I realized I was a fairly good manager. So I didn't sign contracts, and I was very young, and I was very different than the other managers. So I was getting a lot of phone calls from heads of record companies and booking agents for acts. And I said to myself, let me establish some criteria. Since I'm not going to sign someone for passion, what criteria can I use so that my skills don't go to waste?
Right.
Because sometimes it can take years to build a career. So I sort of set a line that they had to have a number one record or a top 5 record. And if they had paid dues to get to that point, then I knew they were through the rough part of the trip, where most people don't survive on the way up through personal problems. And so I got very lucky, and those acts were available to me. So I signed Teddy with a number one record, Luther with a number one record, Blondie had a number one record, Yvonne Elliman had a number one record, Kenny Loggins had a number one record. There were very few acts that I took on. I think Gypsy Kings were the only ones that were a new act, maybe after Alice.
It's so interesting, the amount of people that you've worked with. I just talked to Kenny Loggins yesterday, and he was so great. I mean, just like a wonderful guy.
Great guy.
Yeah, we were talking about the Footloose Kids book, and I have a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old, and you know, it's so interesting to see where these people have gone with their career, and it's all in the book. Again, they call me Supermensch, Backstage Pass to Amazing World of Film, Food, and Rock and Roll. And we don't have a lot of time this morning, which is unfortunate because, again, I could talk to you for hours. But when food always seems to have been something that you're passionate about, and I know you like to cook, but when it came to representing people and working with people like Emeril and Wolfgang, whom I've talked to, how different, I guess, if you can put into words, because we're all people at the end of the day, we kind of have unique jobs, but these cooks, Shep, to me, seem like they almost have another level that they operate on because they can do so many things at so many different times. They multitask well. How would you differentiate between someone like Emeril, between like an Alice or a Groucho?
You know, for me, I see them almost on the same highway. When I started with the chefs, I looked at their lives, and basically, when you get far enough away, it's almost the same life. Alice has to play his hits. If he doesn't play Schools Out or 18, his audience is really disappointed. Mm-hmm. Every chef has to keep their hit dishes on a menu. If you go to Wolfgang Spago and there's no pizza, you get really annoyed. Alice has to create new songs all the time, or he doesn't keep his audience with him. The chefs have to create new recipes all the time. That's the lifeblood of Alice and the chefs, is the creation, their content. When you take it one step further, Alice wears his street clothes into the gig. Wolfgang wears his street clothes into the gig. They dress backstage. Alice puts on his eyes. Wolfgang puts on his jacket. Mm-hmm. They may have some conversations backstage. He may have some conversations in the kitchen. Mm-hmm. Alice may talk to the lighting guy and say, you know, give me a blue light here. Or I want a red light here. Last night you did yellow. Mm-hmm. Wolfgang will say, you know, maybe a little too much pepper last night on the fish. And then they walk out of the kitchen or walk out of the dressing room, and big smile into the room with their audience. So when you get back far enough, it's really very, very, very similar.
Oh, it's such a good point. I guess
that's the way I always tried to treat it.
I hadn't thought about it
exactly
like
in that way.
Oh, you're right, man. Listen, Shep, I want to thank you for the time. Please, everybody listening, pick up the book. They Call Me Supermensch, a backstage pass to the amazing world of film, food, and rock and roll. You can check out the Supermensch documentary. It's still on Netflix. And for you, my friend, I just want to say thank you for the people that you've worked with and the things that you did for them professionally and personally. I'm sure that you get told it often, but you're a good guy, Shep, and I appreciate the time this morning.
Thank you.